Soseman, Cybersecurity Architect from Microsoft, along with Norm Hullinger, CEO of Alphabroder, and Tim Andrews, ASI President and Chief Executive Officer.
So we're going to talk about cybersecurity today and some of the issues around that. And we've got a great couple of guys up on the stage with me today. But before we get started, I want to ask a question of the audience. So let's just pause for a second and go back to that text you had in the surveys. So here's the question. Do you feel your company is taking cybersecurity threats seriously enough? Do you think your company is taking cybersecurity threats seriously enough? A for yes and B for no. So as those are rolling in, welcome to both of you. I want to start by, I think probably everyone in the room knows, but I'll just sort of say in case someone hasn't been reading Counselor magazine. Alphabroder was struck a couple of weeks ago by a really serious cyber attack and a serious situation of ransomware, and that really hit the order processing platform. And we've asked Norm to spend some time with us today talking about that. So Norm, let's get started with. So you're in your office, or you're in your car, or your truck, what happens? What's the first word you get about this? And sort of take us through the first 24 hours.
Yes, so a typical Monday morning, was on the way to the office and got the first couple of phone calls from some folks on our IT staff that said they were seeing some strange alerts in our system. Things weren't working well in some of the remote call centers and DCs, and we've certainly had a few issues in the past that were self-induced, so it didn't cause too much heartache at that moment. So continued into the office, and in the morning, things continued to evolve, mostly still just confusion. Why aren't things working the way we'd expect them to? Obviously the problem began to grow and we began to be more concerned. But the good news is nothing was impacting our Unix environment, FDM4, or our website. We're still taking orders, but our PC environment was impacted. All the databases that we relied on for shipping and those things for receiving customer emails and processing those. So things got pretty serious at about noon when we really started to see then this virus manifest itself on our PCs, databases. When we hit a database, it would come up with a message and it said, quite frankly, you're the victim of malware, ransomware, and you can go to this spot on the dark web if you'd like and start negotiating terms. Otherwise, we'll keep your system down and keep it down repeatedly if you try to bring it back up. So that was about noon or so. The good news is Chuck, our CFO, who presumably is out there somewhere, had put a great plan in place from a cybersecurity perspective, insurance-wise, and so we had a great resource. We reached out to them immediately. They put us in touch with two separate consultancy groups, one a forensic IT consultant that began to help us understand what was the problem, what this virus was, and the second were a set of negotiators that, quite frankly, were folks that were trained to deal with, with these the perpetrators, if that's the right word. We relatively quickly learned through some sort of keyboard translation code that we found that they were Russian language perpetrators. So we probably spent that early afternoon running down a couple of parallel paths, perhaps three. One of them was beginning the negotiation process, putting ourselves in touch through this negotiator with the perpetrators, getting our systems back up with backups and the things you'd expect us to do, and then as a management team beginning to decide what to do in various cases of severity, what would the situation look like. So we ran down those parallel paths for most of the afternoon, and finally figured out that we could get quite a few of our systems back up, and we ended up shipping about 70% of our orders that day. And thanks to our wonderful customers, we continued to receive orders all through this process on a pretty regular basis, pretty regular rate, I should say. By later on Monday afternoon into the evening, we had contacted the perpetrators. There was communication going back and forth.
So is that you talking to them?
No, that was the consultants that
they were already in that quickly.
They were in that quickly. absolutely. I would say that our cyber insurance firm did an amazing job. I mean, when time is of the essence here, and when we're taking, 40,000 orders a day, I can't do the math an hour on that, but I think it's a lot. Every minute counts, and so they were great. And that was a lesson learned, by the way. Make sure that you have a great carrier and a great agency. So we did, and so we're deep in negotiations. They're doing that negotiation on our behalf, we're figuring out that there are a few crucial systems we can't bring back up because they corrupted all of our backups. We had 4 backups of a certain database that we needed to ship orders that had been just decimated. We'd learned that they'd been in the system about 5 to 7 days before they actually hit the button, if that's the right word. So we're learning all this as we go on, and the management team is having a lot of discussions. And finally, our IT team says, well, we can get the system back up completely, but it will be probably in the 3 to 4 day range. So we're speaking with our consultants, and they're saying that the normal course of action here, they've got a database of current ongoing customers, and they're telling us the odds if we capitulate and write a ransom check. What if we don't? What's likely to happen? And it's a very emotional thing. We're getting a lot of feedback from a lot of people, as you can imagine. I'm calling every friend I have that's in the IT arena looking for advice. Surprised, by the way, how many folks had this happen, and I didn't know. And so we as a management team decided by late Monday that that we would wait until first thing in the morning on Tuesday morning. We'd have a team meeting, and we'd decide whether to write the ransom check or attempt to rebuild on our own. We were making great progress on the latter, but again, this one database we just felt we could not recover. So we went through the evening, and I have to be a little bit coy about numbers, but the initial ransom ask was $3.2 million. And the negotiators got that down to something around half of that number. Now the good news is our cyber insurance has a $50,000 deductible, as most do. But the important thing that I didn't know at the time, and perhaps something to learn from this, is that if it's, for example, I'll just throw a number out there. If it's a $10 million policy, anything you spend on the ransom is deducted from your business interruption insurance that you would have as a result. These are things that I wish I had known before that fatal Monday. And as a quick aside, I just wanted to mention, we at Alphabroder aren't at all saying that we've done the right thing, the correct thing, the smart thing. We just did a thing, and we're just going to be honest about what that was. Perhaps people can learn from the things we did right, if we did anything right, and can certainly learn from the mistakes that we made, which we certainly did make a few of those. So anyway, we went through that process. Monday morning, Tuesday morning we got together, and now we had sort of the rebuild information in front of us. We had the fact that we thought we could probably ship 70-75% of orders, but that would be it, for the next 3 or 4 days. Or we could capitulate and pay this ransom, and we decided to do that.
To pay the ransom?
We did.
And was the FBI involved in this stage?
The FBI is involved through the negotiators. We did not have direct contact with them. That's the way our insurance company directed us to perform. So we took all those considerations, and we made that decision. What happened was our databases weren't erased, they were just encrypted. And so what the perpetrators had to sell, quite frankly, is a decryption key. And so this is what the forensic guys do for you. They give you a likelihood on that decryption key working successfully on different types of files and different types of databases. And we listen to all their advice. And again, we're a pretty collaborative management team. Dan, Chuck, myself, Mark Sewell, our CIO. We talked about this collectively, and we made a joint decision to go ahead and inform our insurance carrier to pay the ransom. So we did that. We wired the money over. They converted it into Bitcoin and sent it off to presumably the Ukraine or someplace on the other side of the world. The good news is if there's honor amongst thieves, I've heard that phrase, I'm not sure I believe it, but in this case we got these decryption files or keys back. The forensic guys ran through them to make sure that they were, going to help us. And we got the system back up and running relatively quickly by end of day Tuesday. Had systems back to normal by Wednesday morning. Took us a little bit of time to catch up with some back orders that we had, because obviously we kept getting orders in. And again, if I could just quickly say a commercial for our industry real quickly. It was amazing. We'll talk a minute about the communication that you guys helped us with and others. And but the industry was great. Our customers stood behind us. The well wishes that we received, vendors, suppliers stood behind us. Even a group of competitors and suppliers were at a meeting and heard about it and sent through ASI, I believe, breakfast, bagels, and coffee over to the IT team on that dreaded morning when they had been up all night. So the good news is we were able to get back up and running, we of course now file for the for the ransom from the insurance company. They paid us back, and it's somewhat in the rearview mirror. But of course, there's the questions of will they do it again? Could they do it again? Should we have rebuilt on our own and not paid the ransom and been down a couple of more days, but done the right thing? Many questions, and as I said earlier, we look back on it collectively, and I'm not sure if we know we did the right thing or not. But I do want to say again, I feel like the way that we communicated quickly and honestly to the industry was the only thing that we could do, and it turned out perhaps to be the right thing. And David Clifton, our CMO, is again out there beyond those bright lights someplace, and he worked very carefully with your team and others as well to communicate that. And I think that when I look back on it, if there are three major aspects of this that I would say I wish I'd known more about before this started. Were we as prepared as we could be? Did we have the right technology in place, the right antivirus systems? We weren't. We were pretty good, and we certainly had advice that we were pretty good, but in hindsight, we could have been better. And did we have the right cyber insurance in place? I think the good news is we did have that. And did we communicate in a fashion that we felt was fair and honest, and quite frankly, we owed the industry? I think we did that reasonably well also. So, I'm not happy to be up here talking about this subject, but if it can help others. If I would have heard this story the Monday before we were impacted, I think that we as a management team would have responded a bit more quickly and maybe better. So hopefully it will help.
So do you think that your company was taking cyber? It's interesting. You have an IT background. That's your world, right? Was IT?
Presumably, I worked at Yahoo back when Yahoo was still cool and back in the 90s. But I wouldn't say I'm an IT expert.
So we sort of fast forward. Did you have a plan in place that you had talked about? If this happens to us, this is what we will do, or was this very much a sort of an educated seat of your pants kind of process?
Unfortunately, more the latter. We did not have a comprehensive plan in place, and that would be, again, I'm very cautious of giving advice here because that implies, some hubris that we did the smart right thing. I don't know if we did, but what I will tell you is that if I had to do over again, I would make sure that unless you're the sole decision maker for your company, make sure you have these discussions. What is the limit that you can okay a ransom for? What is the right amount for you to weigh rebuilding versus paying the ransom? If you're down 5 days versus 2, 6 days versus 3, have those discussions up front, and of course, speak with your financial and insurance teams to make sure that you're well insured. But we did not have. We had a lot of the individual pieces in place, but we had not comprehensively sat down. And I will tell you, it is a testament, I think, to the collaborative nature of our management team and the good relationship we have with our private equity guys, that we could come to a decision quickly, because the forensic guys and the negotiators said the biggest thing that they see, they had 92 active cases, by the way, when we were speaking with
92 active cases the day you were talking?
92 active cases that they either just were in the process of solving, had just solved, or they were still working their way through, because they still have to do the forensic work a few weeks afterwards. They're still trying to figure out what patient zero was for us, where it started. But anyway, coming back to them, they said that the biggest thing that they see is companies just paralyzed for 2 or 3 days whenever you're trying to make the decision to capitulate or rage against the the perpetrators. And in a business like ours, waiting just 2 or 3 days would have killed us.
Yeah, thank you. So Matt Soseman, expert in cyber attacks and cybersecurity at Microsoft. So you've heard this story. How many times do you hear this story, and how typical is the story that Alphabroder lived through?
Yeah, it's unfortunate, and this does happen quite a bit. Typically about once a week, I hear stories like this, and it is heartbreaking, right? And it's just kind of the times that we live in right now. But there are things that we can do to both protect ourselves and to respond when it happens.
So what do we do?
Yeah, so for me, it kind of boils down to 4 things. As a security architect at Microsoft, I can go very deep and technical on this, but really the 4 things are one, and we kind of allude to it: have a plan of action. Have a plan on how do I test my backups? How do I respond when the breach occurs? Right? Everybody from leadership, board of directors, all the way down to individual contributor. What's our action plan? How do we respond to this? And the second thing is identity. We talk a lot about as an industry on passwords, and so making sure I have robust passwords, but also things like multi-factor authentication, 2-factor authentication as the industry refers to it as. Let's make sure that those identities of our end users can't be compromised. And then that third thing is around patching. A lot of cases of ransomware and other vulnerabilities, or other breaches, or other vulnerabilities in operating systems, software, and so just making sure that those systems are up to date and stay patched, including my own laptop. And then really that 4th thing to just kind of bring it all back together is having a robust backup program. Now, in your case, the backups were corrupted, and so maybe I might want to have a plan on testing those backups periodically, but it really kind of boils down to those 4 things. There's other things we can do, but that's usually kind of the root of all evil when it comes to cybersecurity.
And that's really just reducing my risk, right? It's not eliminating my risk.
It's not eliminating.
And how far down do I get? Like how well can I be to be as good as you can imagine?
Yeah, it's tough. You can't be 100% secure. And it's just impossible. So you want to reduce that risk as much as possible. But the other way that we think about it is defense in depth and layers. And what I mean by that is let's make it as expensive as possible for those attackers to just move on, right? So if I have multiple layers in my organization, how do I make it so that if they get past 1 layer, but I have 10 more layers, it's just too expensive for them to be able to make it worth it, and so they just move on. Because they're a business as well. They're trying to make a profit off of this. They're trying to automate. They're trying to do all these things just like we would as a business. So just make it as expensive as possible.
So you have any sense of how many times this kind of thing is going on on a daily basis? I mean, if the firm you were working with had 90 open cases from that day or the day before, I mean, how big a deal is this? We've got 25,000 businesses in our industry. Some are small, maybe off the radar from a ransomware perspective. But how big is this?
It's absolutely huge. We have a saying based on our telemetry that the average attacker is inside a network for 200 days before we ever detect them. So that's like me coming to your house, sleeping on your couch, drinking the beverages out of your refrigerator, and you wouldn't even never know. And then when it comes time to buy a new home, or you talk about the down payment, I perk up, and financial transactions are happening. I strike, and so there could be organizations out there right now, maybe even organizations in this room, that are actually breached, and we just don't know it. And so it's happening all the time, and we have to be on alert and have awareness around it.
So most folks here are business owners or certainly C-level. What should they be looking for? What are the questions as a non-technologist they should be asking their technology teams?
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to those 4 things. What's our patching look like? What's our update process look like? And what I mean by that is any kind of software I may use on my computer to just my laptop or my desktop, servers, all of those IT systems. What's our plan for making sure those are staying up to date? And the reason why that's so important is a lot of times ransomware and other attacks will take advantage of vulnerabilities in software. And so we want to make sure that those are constantly up to date. And really the second thing is, what's our status around identity? Do we have robust passwords? Are we changing our passwords? And are we employing things like multi-factor authentication so that if my password is compromised, there's still another layer there that you have to get past? And then things like having a plan and a backup and recovery plan as well can all be very effective. But it kind of starts with the basics and can kind of growing out from there.
And Norm, so you're a $1.5 billion company, plus or minus, I guess. How many sites do you have around the country, and how are you deploying these kinds of technology platforms, you know, and patches, and that's a monumental task, right? So how does that work? And sort of as you fast forward, how's that going to, what are you looking to do in the next year that you hadn't maybe planned to do, that now you're sort of saying, gosh, this was number 5 on my to-do list, now it's number 1 on my to-do list?
Yeah, so we have 2,700 PCs spread across North America, actually a few in Asia as well. It's pretty monumental to keep everything current. So obviously, our team serves as a wake-up call. But again, to be clear and to defend them, I mean, we have some very sharp consultants that were just in our building, coincidentally 3 weeks before, and did an exhaustive survey. We thought we had the best of the best, so we're not condemning those folks at all, but we certainly learned that. I think, path of least resistance, whatever term you use, that we just want to be the best protected home on the block, so they'll go elsewhere, which is a terrible thing, and hopefully not elsewhere to any of our competitors or customers, but just perhaps another industry. And so we've stepped that up. We're putting in some great new products, and I think some of the things that you mentioned, double admin, right, redundancies. Like when you sign on to a new PC, you have to go to your phone and get all that sort of stuff. We're putting in some more layers of that, more than we've ever had. They think that perhaps patient zero for us was when we had a guy trying to rebuild a PC, re-image it, and it came down, during that process. So we're going to make sure it takes 2 admins to do that. They have to sign off. So those are the biggest things that we're going to do. And again, our team is focused. Our backups, we had as many as 4 backups on this one database that they found and corrupted on various machines. We're going to have to do a better job of pushing those to the cloud. And we do take our Unix-based systems and take those off-site. But even those, once they're a week old, to get them rebuilt and put back in place, it still would have been comparable with paying the ransom. So the biggest thing that again, I'm being redundant is should it happen, the decision making, it comes so rapidly, and the emotions are all over the place, and the input that you're getting from different people, it's tough.
So our gut reactions, we don't want to pay thieves, right? I mean, our gut reaction growing up, I think, in the United States is we don't pay ransoms. So that's something to really get over.
Personally, it's, there's a lot of personal, I'm not the type of person where if someone says in the street, hey, give me your wallet, I'm going to hand it over. That's not my nature. It's not our nature as a management team. We're fighters, and it's hard to give in. And you just wonder if you're perpetuating the whole environment by doing that. But at the end of the day, you have to remind yourself that your constituency is your team members that work at the company, your customers, your suppliers, and you have to get past the pride and past the emotions and just make the right decision.
So Matt, do most companies, in your experience, pay ransomware? What sort of, how does this usually roll forward? Or do they just sort of cross their arms and keep going?
It kind of depends. It's very much a business decision at the end of the day, and it comes down to the senior leadership having to make a decision. I would say in my experience, about half the organizations will pay the ransom, and out of that, about half of those, even though they pay the ransom, don't normally get the encryption keys back.
Because these are not really trustworthy.
Right, there's no guarantee. And so that's definitely something to consider and think about. But like in your case, you had cyber insurance, you had all of these other factors coming into play, and many organizations out there don't even have things like cyber insurance. So, again, having that basic plan in place and all the things that go along with that plan can definitely help you stay protected, but then also when it happens, because it's not a matter of if, but when it does happen, you have something that's been tested and ready to be put into place.
So Norm mentioned that this was really a PC platform kind of place. So many of us have PCs and we're doing our email and our employees have it. And then there's sort of the back office platform that's our technology that drives the business, order processing, invoicing, all those other pieces. And of course, many people are moving those to the cloud. I mean, ASI, in fact, we're moving all of our platform to the cloud. We're about 85% finished. We're moving into Microsoft Cloud. Actually, it's been a great experience with us. And so one of our reasons for doing that was from a cyber protection perspective. So as businesses think about these different layers of potential infiltration, right? The PC platform, the laptops, and then sort of the back office platforms. How do we think about that, and what kind of protections should we have, and how much does the cloud really help that? I think you mentioned moving things to the cloud. So what's that look like from a technology
Yeah,
business perspective?
Yeah, it's a great question. Things that happen on the endpoint, my laptop, my desktop, it's still vulnerable, but those are usually kept pretty up to date. Things like automatic Windows updates or automatic Mac updates are usually pretty safe there. But all the back office systems, where my crowd jewels are, where my IP might sit, where my financial transactions might sit, sometimes those systems can be neglected in terms of keeping them up to date, in terms of backing them up, in terms of making an admin may have made changes and maybe forgot about it. And so moving those to the cloud, it does help you kind of standardize and review what's in place to kind of move forward. But it kind of really spreads the gamut there. But the key thing is I also maybe as a business owner, as a business leader, I have to think about what does this mean from a customer experience perspective, right? And so when that day does come, what does that mean for my customers in terms of reputation, in terms of being able to get orders back up and running, and also in terms of being able to compete effectively. Even when you look at Microsoft and kind of how we talk about cloud and our technology, I look at all of you in the room, it's a powerful statement when you can say that we are very transparent as an organization around our cyber practices because we want to make sure your data is safe, right? And so it almost kind of comes into a marketing and sales play as well at some point. But it has to be a priority in the C-suite, and it has to be something that's pushed down from leadership.
Norm, I think you did a great job of communicating externally to people. Internally, how did that communication happen with your private equity partners, which apparently they moved pretty quickly with you, and then secondly, employees. So what was that communication path like, and how did that
Well, our associates, it was an easy conversation. Again, just to the nature of our company, we're very open door sort of company. So we, some of us were out of town that day, but some of the folks that were back in the office just pulled everyone together. Again, we just didn't feel like we were clever enough to spin a story. So we just, not unlike this event here, just told the truth. And that's all we did. We just told everyone exactly what went on, exactly what to expect, exactly what we feared, exactly what we hoped for. Now, private equity conversation was a bit tougher, but they're great partners, and it took us a little while. But we convinced them that we felt like we were going to do what was best for the company. And to your point, different companies have different MOs, right? Ways of operating. If we were a company that took orders on Monday and shipped them on Friday or next Tuesday, we would have rebuilt. No ifs, ands, or buts. But for us, we didn't have that latitude. Our customers, rightfully and have the right expectation that they're going to get their product tomorrow morning. And so we just could not even lose hours. Yeah, but it went well. Again, our associates were very supportive. People stayed late. People worked around the clock. And in some ways, it was gratifying to see the way we all, again, the industry and our folks at Alphabroder pulled together. Right. But not gratifying enough that I would like to go through it again at any time.
Well, I think the private equity conversation was probably better because you had insurance.
Yes.
That made it probably a little easier. Yeah, any questions from the audience? Question right over here.
Is it going to make you more vulnerable because you paid the ransom once that they're going to try to come back in?
So does paying the ransom once make you more vulnerable to a second attack?
That's a great question. You mentioned that these folks are sophisticated criminals, and that's what we were advised, and all we know is what we were advised. And they said that it's not a good business model for them to charge a ransom, pay it, and then go right back and tap you again. Because we would be up here saying, whatever you do, don't pay ransom, right? So, but you don't know. I mean, it could. I mean, we're certainly nervous that it could happen again. We perceive to have deep pockets now. And that's the emotional side of this. You can sit there and argue all day long what was right and what was wrong, and I just don't think we know what was right or what was wrong. All we know is what we've done, and we took advice. Again, these are the best consultants in the business. This is what they do. They negotiate with these guys, and they told us that that we have a pretty good chance of being unaffected for some period of time, but who knows? Right here.
So do you find that will the industry become vulnerable based on somebody penetrating into Alphabroder, or then does the industry now become vulnerable to this ransom?
Interesting. So Matt, do you think the industry would become more vulnerable because someone sort of gets to know our industry a little bit, someone paid, and now let's look for other companies like that?
It's certainly a possibility. It definitely is a possibility. It does happen with other industries. Again, I think that the key is just making sure that you've done your preventative measures and you have a response plan in place. Because it's not a matter of if, but when.
And so I think the survey showed us 75 or 77% of people thought they had taken it seriously. My guess is if we did the poll now, which we're not going to do, that it would probably be a much smaller number, frankly. So just sort of to recap, a lot of C-suite people here. We're leaving tomorrow. What are the 3 things that they ought to do today, tomorrow, and I'll ask Norm the same question.
Yeah, sure. So today, tomorrow, and ongoing. One, have a plan, right? Have a plan on how you're going to have preventative measures for cybersecurity and a reaction plan. And that has to be very robust, and bring in third-party consultants, bring in vendors, bring in suppliers. Make sure you include everything in that plan. The second thing is kind of going back to the basics, but patching, staying up to date, back-end systems, front-end systems, anything that needs to have software updates, make sure you're staying up to date. And then really the third thing is think about how to protect your crown jewels, whether it's IP, whether it's financial transactions, what do we need to put in place to make sure that that's protected, encryption, whatever that may be. So that's kind of my 3 things that I think about. And executing those 3 things, I think you're going to find that you're going to be up to that 80% mark. You're never going to get to 100% security, but it's going to help you.
80% doesn't make me feel great, but I'll take it, I guess.
Right.
Okay, Norm?
I really have nothing to add other than, well, I think you said it already. Just again, make sure you had a plan. If we had access to sort of this sort of information, I just think that we would have been even maybe a half a day faster in making our decisions, and we wouldn't have had that shock factor for a few hours, and it would have been helpful.
Great. Thank you very much. Please give them a big round of applause. Thank you.